Hello YouTube and welcome to the second video commemorating Southampton Sega Park. This time I'm going to talk about the glory years in the arcade, 1999 through to 2001. 99 was an absolutely fantastic year to be in the arcade. But before I do that, there is one game I'd like to mention before, and that is Die Hard Arcade. I played that back in 1997, forgot to mention that in my last video. Great little side-scrolling beat 'em up from Sega there. Used to be able to complete that occasionally in one credit, so great stuff. Anyway, back to 1999, the year of trance, the year of funky house music, the year of Jerry Halliwell's solo career. Okay, moving on. So, House of the Dead 2, at the front of the arcade. Used to play that lots and lots so I could beat the game in one credit. Used to draw huge crowds on that. I remember getting to near the end of the level and some would always join in. I did always point out to them that if you joined in, we're not going to make it because both players have to be good if you want to complete House of the Dead 2 two-player. They ignored me, they got angry when they couldn't make it, but there we go, that's just all the fun of the arcade. Of course, the game of 1999 was Crazy Taxi. That's right, Crazy Taxi. Crazy Taxi. I'll say it twice because it's so good. That was the game of that year. That is the game that really got me believing in gaming once again. Fantastic stuff. Sega Park had the pricing wrong. It should have been £1 ago, but they had it at 50p. It got so many more players on that, and I was able to play it for hours and hours, just getting my score up to 60 or 70,000. 50p used to last me 1 to 2 hours. Really good value at the time, considering I was unemployed and on a training scheme. Really, you know, really made my summer. So thank you very much for those memories, Sega Park. I won't ever forget them. Brilliant stuff. Zombie Revenge, of course, that's another Naomi title there. That inspired me to write my first game guide. Brilliant stuff. Used to be able to complete that in one credit as well, occasionally. Nothing more to say about that. It was a sort of offshoot of House of the Dead. I'm sure all Dreamcast owners know about that one. Ring Out 4x4, that's quite a rare game. That came into Sega Park around about Easter time, 1999. Sort of funny little car game. You sort of drive your cars around this sort of narrow cliff trying to knock each other off. Bit of an odd game, but very quirky, very interesting. I enjoyed it for what it was. Didn't really last that long, but there we go. Daytona USA, I was still playing that at the time, having good sort of casual matches with my friends. Soul Calibur. I have to say I wasn't much of a 3D fighter fan at the time, but one of my work colleagues liked that, so I got into it as well and began playing it. Soul Calibur is actually the reason that I bought a Dreamcast. It wasn't for the Sega games. I know I shouldn't really admit this, but it was actually a fighter. Soul Calibur was the reason that I bought a Dreamcast. I'll talk about how I got hold of my first Dreamcast a little later on. Ferrari F355 Challenge, that was in there very briefly, and I'll tell you a little story about that. It was the big red cabinet they had in with the 3 screens. The coin mechanism was broken when it came in, so the attendants put a little sign on it saying, "Please do not put your money in, call an attendant to play this game." What did people do? They looked at the sign, they read it, and they pulled the sign off, and they put their money in. And when they realised the money didn't go in, and they couldn't get their credit, they went off and shouted at the manager. That's customers for you. Absolutely wonderful. So, you know, I can appreciate what the staff went through with customers like that. You know, you have my sympathy. Okay, and of course we're going to talk about free play nights. Free play nights were fantastic in 99. All those games we had to play, it was a chance for us to move away from what we'd normally play there when we paid our own money to play things we wouldn't usually play. £5 for 2 hours, running amok on those machines was wonderful. We had older games we would play, like Alien 3, the gun from way back when. Scud Race did turn up again in Sega Park, as I mentioned in my last video. It was a 4-player unit near the back of the arcade. I remember playing against this Chinese guy once, and I went round the wrong way on purpose, and he was absolutely furious at me doing that. He found that very disrespectful. I'm very sorry for that, but it was good fun, so who cares? Dead or Alive and Last Bronx were there as well. I can't say they got much play off me over the years, but you know, it was fun to play on free play night. Oh, I met some great friends in that particular year. 2 of them I'm friends with now after 14 years, so fantastic stuff. One of them came up and started playing on House of the Dead 2. The other guy, who wants to call himself Sonic Fury as referred to his real name, don't ask me why, he, at the end of the day, he came up and just spoke to me random at House of the Dead as well, asked if I was on a training scheme. That was the first question he asked me. But we're still friends after 14 years, so it can't have been all bad. Another guy, Mr. Nice 4, I know you've moved up north now, so you know who you are. Great times with you. House of the Dead 2, you were the best playing partner that was ever there. I know we hardly played together. We had great chemistry on that game. We used to nearly complete it every time we played on one credit. And of course, my work colleague who got me into Soul Calibur. You know who you are. I won't mention your name because I haven't seen you in years, but you know, good stuff to you. I hope you're gaming. Thanks very much again for the great times of that year. Alright, so Star Wars Trilogy Arcade. Now that was, again, another game I mentioned in my last video. Used to score chase on that game. I really got into score chasing in 1999 through Crazy Taxi and Star Wars Trilogy Arcade. There was a guy from Bournemouth, initials MIK. I thought that I was the best at that game in the whole country, believe it or not. That's just an arrogant young 22-year-old as I was at the time, sort of just talking. He came and he absolutely wiped the floor with my score. I will say that a couple of years later I did go back down to the Bournemouth Sega Park that he was from and wipe his score out, but it was great fun nevertheless, and it really encouraged me to play the game on a higher level. So thank you very much for that. MIK actually beat me on something else, which I'll talk to you about in a little moment. Marvel vs Capcom, I mentioned that in my last video, all the young guys are doing their aerial rave combos. I got into that game as well. There was a particular Chinese guy who taught me how to play that, so thank you very much. You know who you are. You were the one who had the fascination for Sarah Michelle Gellar, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Again, I won't mention your name because, you know, you're a completely different person now, but thanks to the memories of great times. Okay, Virtua Tennis, that came in on test. Really got a big crowd in that. No idea Sega Park just suddenly got rid of it like that. If I was a staff, I would have absolutely fought tooth and nail to keep that. If the delivery man came to take that away, I'd have beat him up and thrown him out the door. You should have kept that game because it brought in so many people. I have to admit, I was rubbish at it, but I saw people's reactions to it. It was a wonderful game. You should have kept it. You should never have let them take them back off you. Virtua NBA, that was in very briefly on test as well. Didn't really get that many people playing it, but it was only there for a couple of weeks, so that's the reason why. Virtua Striker 2 had a good sort of scene as well. I used to enjoy the people playing as that secret Yucky Chan team. They were all good fun. And let's talk about the tournament, Daytona USA 2. Now that game did come in towards the summertime. It had the twin type battle on the edge cabinets. Good stuff there. I had to say I didn't really enjoy it. I preferred Daytona USA because Daytona USA 2, it didn't allow you to smash the cars off into the wall like you can on Daytona USA. But later on in the year, they brought in Power Edition, the twin types, when they had their famous USA versus UK Daytona USA 2 tournament. Now, I wasn't into racing games at the time, but I decided to enter the tournament originally because I had the chance of winning a small prize. But I realised I could do a lot better. I could actually go for a national prize. And you know what? I actually came second. And I will admit this to you right now, it's not through my skill that I came second. It's because I watched the engineer play the game and I just copied his technique. And it was good enough that I could actually get a second place finish. £500 was my prize. Here is my winning letter. I'll put a link at the bottom for you. This was given to me in early 2000. Check for £500, which I had to spend on a large water bill. And also, I bought a Dreamcast console with it. So that's the first and probably only console I'll ever buy with a prize money. Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Sega. I have to say, though, the tournament was very badly organised. That's probably why I had more or less a clean run, with the exception of that one other guy, which I'll talk about in a moment. And £2 ago it was to get into the tournament. That was stupid. Nobody wanted to do it. And I had to send off my own entry card as well. I had to pay for the stamp for that. So actually not £2, it was about £2.30. Dumb decision there, Sega. Really, really stupid management on your part, I have to admit. But I guess at the end of the day that sort of cleared all the other competitors out of the way. So I had more or less a clean run. So thank you very much. The actual winner was that MIK guy again from Bournemouth. He probably won the £1,000. So if you're out there, you know who you are. Message me, comment below. Fantastic, you know, you deserve that win. I, at the end of the day, was, you know, an imposter. I only entered that tournament for the money, I must admit, even though I love Daytona USA 2 now and desperately want it home. So if you're listening, Sega, you bring it home now. At the time, I was just in it purely for the money. One other thing I'll mention about that game just before I go on to the year 2000. On the very last day of the tournament, they closed Sega Park down for a corporate party. I mean, seriously, if it wasn't for the fact I hadn't played that game a couple of days before for my final best time, and with my last amount of spending money, I will add, if I'd have actually waited until the final day, I couldn't have done it because the place was closed all day for a corporate party. At the end of the day, unfortunately, the situation is money talks and bullshit walks, but absolutely dumb decision again. I have to say that I'm sure Sega want to see the back of that competition. It was so badly organised, but I got £500 out of it, so, you know, at the end of the day, I have to say, thumbs up from me. Anyway, okay, the year 2000. Now, that could never live up to the standard of 1999, unfortunately. but a great year nevertheless. Star Wars Racer Arcade. Now that was a game I really threw a lot of money at. I got myself a good job in that year, and I was spending ridiculous amounts of money on that game. So about, I think it must have been up between £400 and £600 in total. That was the first racing game I actually got into. It was the first racing game as well of an internet ranking. Really trying to push my way up the leaderboard on that. I'll try and provide some of the old home pages below. They've been taken offline for a long time, but great stuff on that. I had a great fun. I used to enjoy the sort of tank-like controls playing that. There's a video you can have a look at below, but I'll put a link to that too. Not the best racing game, I must admit, but a great racing game all the same. I can't say I'm not really much of a Star Wars fan, but I did enjoy that. Not much else to say about that apart from the amount of money that I threw at that. MIK, the guy I mentioned before who beat me in Daytona USA and Star Wars Web, did actually try and come up for Bournemouth to beat my score. He didn't manage to, so that's one thing I managed to get him on. So there we go. Okay, 18-wheeler, another Naomi game, also appears on the Dreamcast. That was a good one as well. I wrote an FAQ for that one too. I also wrote an FAQ. I mentioned Star Wars Trilogy Arcade and Star Wars Racer Arcade. You know, again, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. I wrote a lot of FAQs in those particular years for games. I'll put the links below if you want to read them. Oh, what else? Silent Scope 2 came in. I played the first one sort of a little while back in the old Quasar Way Out West arcade. Silent Scope 2 came. I had a good score attack with one of the staff members there at Sega Park. Yeah, it was good fun. I enjoyed it. Always had a funny, dodgy gun though. Never was really good, but never as good as I could have been on that. And they should have had the tournament setting on, because I could have got them a very good score. I could have registered quite highly on the national ranking on that. But there we go. It was a good game nevertheless. Now, 2000 was a year of transition for Sega Park. A new game came in that took the limelight away from players like myself, and that's no bad thing because we had our time in the spotlight. Time to step aside and let other people come in. Dancing Stage Euromix. Now, that was an absolutely brilliant game. I'd seen that a couple of months before in Sega Park Bournemouth, and people's reactions to that, I knew that was going to be an absolute smash hit. So that was really, the focal point was on now the young guys doing their dancing on that machine, sort of away from the old school players like myself. But nevertheless, I enjoyed watching them play. I was absolutely rubbish at that game. I did play a couple of times quite quietly. I have to say I've never enjoyed the music selection on that game, I will be honest, although I love the idea of it. It was a fantastic, innovative idea. But the fact I want to hear steps 5, 6, 7, 8 and Boyzone's So Good, which played me during that summer of '95. Oh God, I hate that tune. But and all that. But you know, it's all good fun, and seeing people dance. And my friends really got into that as well, and he had a great time. See him dance around on that was fantastic. I hope he lost some weight on it as well. He knows who he is, and you know it's all good. So hopefully you don't take that personally. All right, well. As I say, it's a year of transition, and 2000, it's really when we have to say goodbye to the fighting scene that year. That was a very sad moment. A lot of silly things happened in that year, I have to admit. Street Fighter EX2 was taken out and not replaced. A lot of the players who just came in solely for that game, they weren't informed it was being taken out, it was just taken out under their noses. They came in looking around, looking confused, going, where's that game? One guy just walked in, sort of didn't see it, walked straight back out. I never ever saw him in there again. That happened to about 3 or 4 other players, so that was just killed, you know, stone dead. At least, why didn't they just let us know it was going, so we could, you know, make preparations and, you know, to say goodbye. It was just like, gone, bye. Didn't like that at all. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I absolutely love that game. I've got it for Dreamcast. It was too expensive. It got up from 50p to £1 to go. All the old Marvel vs. Capcom 1 players didn't want to give it the time of day. It was just too expensive to play, so they all disappeared from the arcade as well. And by the end of 2000, there was no fighting scene left, so it was very sad. We did have Capcom vs. SNK in. Again, that was £1 to go. It was too expensive to play it regularly. You know, they just were not interested in it. I have to say, I will be honest, a lot of that year, 1999, 2000, a lot of guys that were playing the fighting games, they were at college and university, so I guess their courses finished as well. That's got to be taken into account. But the pricing on the games was just silly. You know, it really shouldn't have happened like that. Besides, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was on a really, really bad screen. I'll be honest, it looked better on my black and white TV through RF cable than it did on that screen, so you know, that shows you how bad it was. And I'm really, really sad about that, because so 2000 will always be tinged with that sadness that, you know, a great scene died, and, you know, it shouldn't have in the way that it did. Fair enough if it wasn't making any money anymore, but at least please tell us when the games are going so we could all say goodbye. It would have been so much better. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick pause now while I just catch my breath, and hopefully I'll continue the next part of the video right about now. Okay, so what else did we have in 2000? We had Emergency Call Ambulance. That was a Hikaru/Naomi game that was there very, very briefly. Didn't really stay for that long, so people couldn't really get into it, but I think it made good money while it was there, for all the 2 weeks that it was there. We also had a Ferrari F355 twin type in very, very briefly towards the end of that year as well. Bit bizarre. I mean, they actually had the little bits where you put your Dreamcast VMU in there, so you could have saved your replay videos, and if you had F355 Challenge on the Dreamcast, you could have watched those at home. But they were all taped up. And the moment I asked about them, they all screamed at me and said, no, 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 you can't go anywhere near those. They're, all right, fair enough. Sorry, sorry. Okay, Brave Firefighters, and another game there for Sega, arcade only, so I have the hose pipe. Very, very innovative game there. It was a demo only in Sega Park. They still charge us £1 to go though. Really would like to have seen the full game there, because that was a really, really sort of good offshoot of the light gun series. Brave Firefighters, if you ever see that, do give it a go, because it's really, really worth it. Airline Pilots, another sort of game that was around at that time. Didn't really last long in Sega. Really was a staple of Bournemouth Sega Park though. Alright, I guess. Sort of airplane taking off and landing simulator, you know, sort of make of that what you will. So that was really 2000 off the top of my head. 2001. Again, you know, it's sort of coming down there from those glory days of 99, 2000. 2001, still a fairly good year. Sports Jam, remember that being there, a Naomi test game, that's on the Dreamcast as well if you're interested. Didn't last there that long at Sega Park. A lot of Naomi games at that time sort of came in and came out. Confidential Mission, as you can see there, great light gun game there from Sega. Used to play that a lot in sort of the early part of 2001. You know, had a great sort of internet ranking on that as well that I used to compete in. I'm afraid the internet ranking's now gone for good, not on archive.org, so I can't prove my high scores, but you can see one of my replay videos on the Dreamcast version. You can see how well I played on that. The tournament mode, it sort of stopped operators from going in and messing around with the settings. You just had one sort of no continues, free lives, set difficulty, fantastic. So when the operators went and messed around with the settings, just go into that mode and it made it all absolutely, you know, straightforward for you. Great stuff. Great stuff there from Sega. Really like Confidential Mission. Once again, I'll point it out to you, it's the game there. So, Ninja Assault, another light gun game there, this time from Namco, also running on Naomi board. Fantastic game there, very, very tough. Never was able to complete that game in one credit. I'll probably give more of my time to Confidential Mission there. But good game nevertheless. Got the game at home now. Wish I gave it more of the time of day back when it was around, but you know, I can't play everything to that level. It just simply wasn't possible. Cosmic Smash, another Dreamcast, you know, turned up for the Dreamcast again as well, but originally that came out for the arcade. That was a good one too, very minimalist sort of Pong type game. I think I ranked 220th in the world on that. You can see the internet ranking below there. What else in 2001? Resident Evil Gun Survivor 2. Not the best game, I have to admit. I did write an FAQ for that, which you can have a look at. I'll put the link below again. Sort of very strange sort of gun joystick mechanism, but good game nonetheless. I did enjoy it. And also, how did we end the year? We end the year with Tekken 4. Didn't really like that game, to be honest. I have to say I'm not really much of a Tekken fan, but I did play it a few times just to complete it once with that Steve Boxer character. 2001. A lot of the time, I have to say, I was really playing by myself. My friends had sort of moved on to sort of move to university or moved away from the area. So, you know, I still had my two best friends, of course, but we weren't playing the same game. So it was really, 2001 was really the sort of the time that I went solo. I was really sort of doing solo, playing a lot of games. But I have to say, 1999 to 2001 were the best times in Sega Park. I mean, Outrun 2 later on did come close, but it's just, there's just so much variety going there. It was such a great time to be into gaming. All those Dreamcast titles as well that you knew were forthcoming, and it was wonderful. So much colour in the arcade. Yes, you know, it was all offset by Dance Stage, you know, Euromix, but that's no bad thing because it, you know, that sort of helped bring the money into Sega Park, so they could sometimes bring in those quirky titles that didn't make as much money. So Dancing Exchange Euromix should be thanked for that. Also, 2001 was the time that Sega stopped running their own arcades in the UK. Yes, they were losing money hand over fist. Their Sega World in Sydney, Australia was losing money. They had to pull out of that deal. The Sega World in Trocadero was losing money. They had to close that. The Dreamcast, you know what all happened to that? It was going down, and you know, they were losing so much money they had to restructure. And part of that restructure was they sold the Sega Park brand off to the Leisure Exchange. So things sadly would never be as good as they were. They would never be the same again. There are still some great times to be had though. So my next video will be covering from the years 2002 through to 2007. A lot of changes to be made. Sometimes not always for the good, but I'll discuss those honestly as I can. So stay tuned. Long live the legacy of Sega Park. Long live the Dreamcast. Long live the great times. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.